Hey, 7th grade scholars. Today we're going to talk about WKU, but throw in some fractions. Some students get intimidated when they start seeing fractions and proportions, but don't overthink it. We're going to use the same type of strategies. Look at number 1. If Xander walks 1/2 mile in 1/4 hour, how many miles does he walk in 1 hour? Our words are already here for us, miles and hours. So we have 1/2 mile in 1/4 of an hour. We want how many miles, that would be our x, he can walk in 1 hour. Remember, whenever you're trying to solve a proportion, there's two different strategies. Sometimes you can look for a scale factor, a way to go across by a division or multiplication relationship. Sometimes it's easier to use your cross products. So be flexible in your strategies. This one, I want you to think about 1/4 times what is 1. How many groups of 1/4 do we need to make a whole? That would be 4. So we can times by 4 on top and bottom. But here's where your fraction skills come in. Yes, you have a calculator to help you, but don't always rely on it because it's not always going to be a calculator active question. So we're going to do 1/2 times 4. Remember, there's an invisible 1 under that 4, so let's rewrite it here. 1/2 times 4/1. Okay, go straight across. So 1 times 4 is 4. 2 times 1 is 2, and that equals 2. All right, let's try another one. If Abby painted 2/5 of a wall with 1/3 gallons of paint, how many gallons would she need to paint the whole wall? So we can relate the wall to gallons of paint to wall. Remember, we can choose how we set up our words. I'm going to put the wall on top and gallons on the bottom. So we have 2/5 of the wall, 1/3 gallon of paint. We're trying to cover the whole wall, which is one wall, and then X is what's missing. Let's try cross products this time. Remember, cross products means that 2/5 times X is equal to 1/3 times 1. All right, we know 1/3 times 1 is just 1/3. So now we need to do an inverse operation. Going to be dividing by 2/5 on each side. Okay, so this is where you can use your calculator to help you. However, again, we can't always rely on that. We need to remember our KCF, our keep, change, flip. So keep the first fraction, change the sign to multiplication, flip this around, make it our reciprocal, and multiply. So we've got 1 times 5, which is 5, and 3 times 2, which is 6. So 5/6 would be our answer, 5/6 gallons to cover the wall. All right, you can pause the video here, try numbers 3 and 4, and see if you're able to get those. All right, let's see how you did. Number 3 is very similar to number 2. Still relating the wall to gallons of paint. This time we have 2/3 of the wall for 1/4 gallon of paint. And we want to cover again the whole wall, per wall. Okay, cross products again. Let's try that strategy. So 2/3 times X equals 1/4 times 1. So we know 1/4 times 1 is 1/4. Divide both sides by 2/3. Okay, let's do a little keep, change, flip on the side here. So we're doing 1/4 divided by 2/3. So keep, change, and flip. Okay, go straight across. And that would be 3/8 for that one. Okay, now if you used your calculator to help you, want to make sure you remember something very important. Okay, so my computer calculator is not the same as our black calculators, but don't forget to use your parentheses, no matter what calculator you're using, really. So I'm going to do 1/4 parentheses divided by another parentheses 2/3 and enter, and I get 0.375. That's the decimal equivalent of 3/8, 3 divided by 8. So 0.375 is also correct. All right, last one. This one is actually the easiest one on the whole sheet. So Jaden earned $60 for 3 hours of babysitting. At this rate, how much did she make per hour? So we're talking about money, how much money she earns for how many hours she babysits. We know she gets $60 for 3 hours. How much does she earn per hour? There's our X. Okay, we can cross multiply again, of course. But again, I want you to be flexible to think about relationships because you did some charts like this in 6th grade. Can you see a relationship? Okay, if you were thinking we could divide by 3, you are correct. 60 divided by 3 is 20, and that's basically finding her unit rate, her COP. Remember we used that abbreviation? Constant of proportionality, or her unit rate. All right, make sure this goes inside of your notebook for reference later, and let's take a look at what we need to work on today. You have a sheet today that has 9 questions on it, so kind of like a tic-tac-toe grid. I want you to use all the strategies we've been talking about to solve it, and you'll have a chance to play a wayground game. So for this one about Rudy in the middle, try to set up a WKU chart like we did in our notes today. Maybe miles to hours would be a good setup. You got a fraction in there, but don't let that throw you off in any way. Okay, so this is one of your activities we want you to do today. There's going to be one more activity that we want you to do in Canvas, and we want you to use the back of this paper for your scratch work. So in your Canvas today, you are going to see a throwback quiz on rational numbers. So again, use the back of your tic-tac-toe paper for your scratch work, but look at the instructions. It says try not using your calculator. So remember, this was the first unit we did before we got calculators. So if we see you working on this little assessment, please make sure that your calculator is covered. That way you're challenging yourself to remember how to do your old skills. If you finish those items, then make sure that you have finished everything from yesterday, the green, yellow, and red checks. Some shout outs for some students today who did a great job yesterday. Then remember there's an extra challenge in your Canvas announcements, thinking blocks, also unit rate posters and the bottle app. And don't forget to make sure that you turn in your homework page today. All right, do a great job on everything you got going on today.